First of all, I'm delighted to be here and a part of this panel for the class action efforts on the 12th and the 13th. And I'm very pleased to be with these other members of the panel, Kath and Justin, Alex, and Professor Amy, and all. I'm going to try to make my remarks within about a 20-minute frame, and then I think there should be time for interchanging among us and then some interchanging from other people. Now, let me congratulate those of you who have come today for this cause, and congratulate the students for quality education on their platform and their set of demands, which it seems to me is very urgent. I'm going to come back to that in a moment. I must say to you that in the light of the seriousness of the crisis that we have in the United States and in California and elsewhere, and in the university system, period, CSUN, and all. I do not want to sound a negative note, but I want to say that we should have a full house today about this. And I do not accuse anyone of being apathetic. I don't think most people in California are apathetic about what's going on. They may not understand it as well. I don't think the students are apathetic. There is a serious threat to public education in California and elsewhere, and quite specifically to the Cal State University system. It is not an economic crisis at CSUN. It's not an economic crisis at all, in my judgment, in California or elsewhere. The media and the Chamber of Commerce and big business and the federal government and both political parties are not telling the truth about the crisis in the United States. That's the reality. And it's many areas where this is not happening, but in terms of the economic condition of our people, our 308 million people who reside in the borders of this land, it is not an economic crisis, it is a political crisis, it's a moral crisis. It's a crisis between what is right and wrong kind of crisis. It is the failure of our nation to look at ourselves and to at least be honest. The first president of Czechoslovakia, Václav Havel, who was an artist and a writer, an author, a dramatist, who was in and out of jail in Czechoslovakia as he criticized the dictatorial society that developed under the Communist Party in Czechoslovakia after World War II, which was a decision made by the Allies out of World War II, that Czechoslovakia would be more under the influence of the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union armies had swept from the east towards the west and pushed the German occupying and military forces back. It was a decision by the Allies. It was a political decision that said that Czechoslovakia would be under the influence of the Soviet Union and not free to make their own decisions. Havel, in the late 1980s or so, wrote a very wonderful essay that many have claimed as a nonviolent essay called Living the Lie. And a part of his point was, for his own country and for Europe and for a lot of the world, was that if you live the lie, that is being told in Czechoslovakia and by the Soviet Union and by the singular Communist Party and by the various collaborationists with the party and the condition in Czechoslovakia, then you can never come to a point where there's a chance that honesty and realism and truth living and truth speaking might lead you to some of the steps whereby you can change your condition. And that I lay in the United States. Our problem is not money. Our problem is the way we've been governing ourselves under the aegis, under the powers of big business and a Republican and Democratic Party that have not demonstrated their care for the well-being of the 310 million people, and under our atrocious determination that we will be the military bully of the earth to make the earth do as we tell the earth to do. Under a power structure that in itself is destructive. The issue is not money. It is a moral vision. It's a vision of who we are as human beings, and it is our unwillingness to demand of the powers that be in the United States equality, liberty, and justice for all, and a society that is seeking to do right and to do just by each other and by all. I want to pose against that what we have seen already in this year of 2011. Our foreign policies, our military policies that have helped to shape the world, being challenged in both Tunisia and Egypt by the raw material of what I call nonviolent struggle, that can also be called civil resistance movements. And you see in those instances the collapse of two societies that have been arbitrarily dictatorial and atrocious to their own people, backed up by the economies of Europe especially, but also backed up by our own foreign aid to Egypt, which has been something like $14 billion a year for 20 years. We supported the denial of fundamental human rights in both Tunisia and Egypt until sufficient numbers of the people decided they were no longer going to live in that lie and began to exercise their right to say yes or no, and then to join with other people so that literally millions of them in the streets all over those two lands, essentially working from a nonviolent civil resistant perspective, caused those countries to tumble against the wishes of Europe and against the wishes of the United States, against dictatorial power that was propped up for 20 or 30 years by our own design.